Dr. York had pictures of black Jesuses
Oh yeah,
all over Georgia.
all over there.
Now, that's interesting. Black Jesuses. Okay.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you. Let me show you something. If you can pick, if you can say that they had one agent on Tamaray, that's COINTELPRO.
Right.
Okay. See, I encourage a lot of people to read Bill Osinski's book, Ungodly, for this one reason. He clearly told you that the government had went hard on that. He said in Putnam County, had great fears of a black nation within a nation.
The United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors.
See, right. See, land is the greatest means of your resources. For a black man to have 476 acres of land. Now, I'm not saying, and I can't say, that the federal government didn't have a case against Dr. York. They had a case against Dr. York. Whether it was a good case or a bad case, that's going to be determined by what you find out in reference to all the procedural errors that may come up, and you know, judicial violations and violations of procedures that may come up once you do a thorough search of this case. And that's one thing that has not been done. There has not been no thorough search of procedural issues of violations that was done by the government, by the judge, by the jury. All right. Now, I can't sit here, brother, and I'm not going to be stroking people's, you know, perception of what is real and what is not real when it comes down to these people who accuse Dr. York of doing them wrong, right? You would have to read in their trial testimony yourself and come to your own conclusions, all right? I cannot invalidate that these folks had no claims. I can't invalidate that. They had too many red flags in this case, brother, against Dr. York. All right. And I, as a black man who have a sense of history and have an understanding about, you know, what constitutes a victim, and I'm be perfectly honest with you. And I don't care who love me after this. I don't care who hate me after this. But if I had to choose between Dr. York and the people who testified, not only the victims, okay, but people in his own family, people whatnot that had served time, I cannot give Dr. York total green light in what has happened in this case. But on second thought, I don't believe that Dr. York, for whatever I might believe, I don't believe that Dr. York should be doing the rest of his life behind bars.
You know, that's interesting that you said that, because I spoke to what's the one brother? He had did an interview with Brother Polite. And Brother Polite asked him, they were sitting on like a park bench somewhere, and he asked him, what's the brother's name? Um, oh man, his name is right on the tip of my tongue. And he asked the brother, he said, because he was one of the main brothers making these accusations against Dr. York. And he said, well, with all of the accusations you made against Dr. York, do you feel, Dr. York, that 135 years in prison were justified? He said, no, I don't. And Polite looks at him like, but after making all the accusations you made, you all over social media accusing this man of this, how are you concerned about how much time he gets if you were violated the way you was now or the way you claim? Now, I spoke to the brother myself. What's his name?
Oh, you talking about Tariq Noel?
Yeah, David Tariq Noel. I spoke to him on the phone twice. And I said to him, I said, well, I lived in the Ansarullah community in around the time y'all were saying these accusations took place, 84, 86. I lived in the community. And I said, one of the things that was always discussed was Dr. York. He was the focus of everything in the community. And I said, now, one of the things that was always discussed was his sex life. Because, you know, everybody knew most he could have had probably any sister he wanted in the community. You know, women was attracted to him. Now, my point of bringing that up is because it was such a small community, everybody basically had an idea what was going on. Had there been even a rumor that Dr. York was harming children, I can guarantee everybody who's looking and listening, Dr. York would have got a beat down. Because I know the type of brothers that were there because I was there, and they was not tolerating you harming no children. Same way people got upset when they even heard the accusation in the street with no proof whatsoever. Now I said to him, I said, now I'm not saying, I said to David Tariq Noel, I said, look, I'm not saying something might not have happened to you. I'm not saying you might not have been molested by someone. I don't believe you when you say Dr. York did it because you provide no proof. Yes, you made an accusation. I'm saying you might have been molested, and if it was, everything that can go out to a victim of molestation and rape, it goes out to you. But you can't expect me to just accept this heinous accusation just on your word, and you have absolutely no proof. You just have your word. I said, I can't do that because you just provided no proof. And then it would shock me if I'd been violated, and that's just me. I wouldn't care how much time you got. 135 years wouldn't be enough for me, especially with the way he claims.
Brother, that's easier said than done, but you gotta keep in mind, all right? Keep this in mind, all right? When you read when you read the transcript of December 16, 2003, at a hearing, the government acknowledged that Dr. York had done a lot of good, okay, to people, for people, okay? And that was their way of saying that because it was considered a criminal enterprise indictment, they said that everybody that was in the enterprise was not necessarily a criminal. They said you had good people. They also acknowledged that Dr. York had helped people, had gave good information to people, all right? They acknowledged that, all right? And let me tell you another thing that people don't realize and that they should really understand. The government was willing, when Dr. York made the plea and the plea was rejected by Judge Lawson, the government got together with Dr. York's attorney and pleaded with the judge to accept the 15 years. The government went so far as to say that we will drop one of the charges to bring it below the 15 years. And if you want to raise it up to 15 years, we can do that. And the judge refused. The judge refused because the judge felt that Dr. York had not shown any remorse for what the judge said or what the judge believed that Dr. York did. So the judge will give him an extra 20. Now, if I had Dr. York's ear at that time, I would have told him, brother, do the 20. Because if you don't do the 20, brother, and if you withdraw your plea, they're going to come down with a superseding indictment that's going to really hurt you. And that's what they did. Who on this video chat would not trade 20 years for 135 years?
And you know, it's something that you said that because usually most people, if they never been through the prison system, don't understand how a plea bargain really works.
Mm-hmm.
And don't realize the great majority of people that's locked up in prison is there because they plea bargained, as opposed to they actually got convicted in a real trial. Because they say, well, if you take the plea, you do 5 years. What if I go to trial? You're looking at a minimum of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people really believe, but it's not true, that you're innocent until proven guilty. It's really the opposite. You're guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
Now, with all that aside, you brought up one other thing that caught me about the nation within a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had people ask me about the loss of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting how you mentioned about they wanted the land, because there's some people might not know this, but the land attorney, Robert Ratliff,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he got my phone number, but he called me a number of years ago when he was fighting for the land.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I didn't know Dr. York had turned the land over to, I think it was 9 owners. I didn't know this.
Right.
He calls me up. I live in New York City. That's all I'm going to say. And he calls me up, and he's in a panic about, Mr. Muhammad, do you know how to get in contact with the landowners? Now, I didn't tell him at the time. I didn't even know Dr. York had not owned the land at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, no, I don't. I said, but he said, because I'm trying to get in contact with them. We're supposed to go to trial. We're supposed to go to the court tomorrow for a hearing. Well, Mr. Ratliff, if you can't get in contact with these people and to go to court, and they're the landowners, what's going to happen? He said, oh, they'll lose the land by forfeiture.
Right. Right.
He said, straight up, they'll lose the land by forfeiture. And I'm saying it to say the land was lost. That land was lost by forfeiture. The people who owned the land refused to fight for it. I don't know who they were. I'm sure there's some people who do. But you need to know they did not fight for the land.
Yeah.
Because
well, basically, brother, okay, I don't know why Rochelle and them stopped communicating. All right. Now, who said no? Nobody said 135 wasn't a plea. No, it couldn't have been a plea. Matter of fact, I think young Pharaoh had said 135 wasn't a plea. That wasn't my position. 135 was because he was convicted. All right. It had nothing to do with a plea. It was because he was convicted.
And that was the RICO and money structuring charges.
Well, no, he was convicted with 4 RICO. Four counts under the Mann Act. Also with 3 episodes of structuring. All right. But I'm gonna tell you something about, at one point I'm gonna tell you something about that that's gonna really blow you away. But I can tell you that Dr. York was not structuring. Okay? He was not structuring. And I'm going to tell y'all that you need to get a case. It's on Ed Garland's website. It's called the United States versus Lang. L-A-N-G. Because we don't have no education in terms of the difference between structuring and depositing. And it was the same circuit, that case came from the same circuit that convicted or that upheld Dr. York's conviction, the 11th Circuit. All right. Very, very important case. And the tragedy of it is that Ed Garland knew that Dr. York was not structuring when he looked and researched the indictment, because he's the one who put that case out there on his website. I was just happening to go on the website and I saw the case. All right. Okay. So I don't want nobody. I'm letting you know up front. I gave you the info. I don't want nobody sit up there naming and claiming. All right. I gave you the info. Go ahead and do the research and look it up yourself. United States versus Lang, 2013. Yeah, under the 11th Circuit.
Okay, so let's do this, right? Let's get real serious here, because my take has always been Dr. York is doing 135 years. He's a 75-year-old man. He's not a young, I think people have a tendency sometimes when they look at pictures on the internet and the books to forget this is a 75-year-old man. He's no longer that young man you're looking at in the books and pictures. He's been incarcerated for what, 19 years, going on 20 years now, and did about what, 10, 11 of those in ADX Florence. I think it's imperative that with all of this things that can be put together and worked on, that we need to stop the little inner bickering and this, that, and the other, and all come together and work with you on what we need to do to try to at least get Dr. York out of prison before he makes his transition out of here.
Well, listen, brother.
Keeping it real.
Look, that's a worthy goal. Let me tell you something, all right? A lot of people, whether you believe it's innocent, a lot of people really love Dr. York, all right? It's just unbelievable. When I used to go on the land, all right. See, white folks with power, money, and prestige do not like to see black folks with power, money,